My name's MacKizzy. Some of you have probably seen my video. For those that haven't, I'd just like to tell you my story, what happened to my mum. Now, we've all got grandmothers and parents that some of them are in homes, some of them are at home trying to recover. So this is my story. My mum was elderly, she was 91, and she was my grandmother legally, but of course she was my mum because she brought me up. So she was in a care home after 2 strokes. And on the night, obviously we went through, like all of you have went through, you didn't have Mother's Day, which was really bad, but for me I was lucky. I was allowed to, go pop myself up at her window outside the home to see her collect her flowers. So that was great, because obviously a lot of people didn't get that. But on the 4th and the 5th, my grandmother had a chest infection, and I was called, but she was still being really good with the nurses. She was still having a laugh, she was still there. And on the 5th, I got a phone call to say that the home was going to let me in to see my gran because she had took a turn. And to let you understand, I was a power of attorney, so I'd just like to point that out as well. So we went to the home, and I walked in, I was tested, I was took round to the room, I was took in with the carer. The carer stood there and her eyes were filled up with tears. I looked at the bottom of my mum's bed, and I looked at my mum, and I said to the carer, she looks like she's took a stroke. What's her turn? But anyway, she looked like she had a stroke, the head was back. And I put my hands over her face and I said to her, Mum, can you hear me? Can you hear what I'm saying to you? And when she replied, I knew that although she couldn't speak, she could definitely hear me. So I repeated this, and she did it again. The nurse that was going off duty was one of my mum's favourite nurses, and she told me the doctor wouldn't be long. And I thanked her for letting me in, because obviously no one was allowed in to see their loved ones. And I also thanked her for calling me, and she left. A nurse then appeared in the room. She told me the doctor wouldn't be long. This went on, and I'm going to cut a long story short, this went on for hours. For quite a few hours I asked where this doctor was. My mum was lying back like that, like she's took a stroke. It's like, so shouldn't a doctor have been there? She finally came back and told me the doctor wasn't coming. But that's okay, because they've given her something to settle her. I obviously thought it was morphine they were giving her to settle her. After a few hours, as I say, the doctor wasn't coming, I had suggested that my gran's breathing, I'm saying my gran because she was my gran legally, as you know, but my mum's breathing had, relaxed a bit, and she seemed a bit more settled. She did have a chest infection, and it was crackling. But I said to the nurse, she's a wee bit more settled now, so me and my son are going to go home, we're going to have a few hours sleep, and we'll come back in the morning, we'll sit there the next again day. Well, obviously that didn't happen. She said that was fine, so I went outside to phone my son to come back and collect me, as I don't drive. And when I walked back in to tell her, my son's coming to get me, we're going to go home, that's when they turned round and went, we've just given her end-of-life drugs. End-of-life drugs. You don't even know what's wrong with her, and they're giving my mum end-of-life drugs. I haven't even been told what's wrong with her. I don't know if it's a stroke. I'm just assuming it's a stroke. I am not a doctor. A doctor should have been there. She was a patient. She was alive. She was in that home, and no doctor came to see her, but could order these drugs over the phone. The doctor has a conversation with a carer or a nurse, and they can order drugs. Just put her down like a dog. And that my mum was put down like a dog, and I want to make sure that everybody in Scotland, not just to say about my mum's story and get justice for my mum, but I want other people to come out and tell the truth truth of what's happening in these care homes, the truth what's happening in all these hospitals. I've got pictures that would absolutely shock you what the hospital got away with before I even got her into the home, but that's another story. So I just want people to be aware that this is actually happening. My mum was one of the most loveliest people you have ever met in your life, and I'm not saying that because she was my mum. She worked hard. When I was 5 years old, my grandfather died, so she brought me up and all her own family single-handedly, and she worked many jobs, and she worked for the social work department as a home help above the colleges, definitely. The social worker's best person they had on their books, I can assure you. And she did that till she was 73. And it was only obviously her health why she didn't work. And even after a stroke, she still knitted for companies. She knitted tight band socks all over the world. And she was associated with charities. She gave, and she was a giver in life till right to the end. Now, my whole point here as well is we're Christians. And my mum was brought up in the church. She was part of the church. So I don't understand how it wasn't God's will taking my mum's life. And it should have been God's will. She should have been able to be seen by a doctor for a start, and be diagnosed what was wrong with her. And I got the phone, as I say, we went home, and at 5:50 in the morning, I get a phone call to say, "Oh, we're so sorry, but your mum's passed 10 minutes prior." Now, I had already said to her that she was to phone me straight away. I was only 10 minutes away from the home. But no, that wasn't to happen. She told me she had died at 20 to 5. Now, I told her story in Falkirk, but obviously I got quite upset. It was quite emotional, so I missed quite a bit of the facts out. The reason I told the time of death was a week later when we got that death certificate. It says 5:30. So I don't even know what time my mum died. Never mind what she died of. And then the fact that as far as I'm concerned, they murdered my mum. And they can dress this up any way they want. But at the end of the day, they put my mum down like a dog without even seeing her. So ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to, when you're thinking about your loved ones and you're thinking about all these people that are in these homes and that are in these hospitals, I ask you to question every single thing that these people are getting, because I was power of attorney, I was her mum, I did not even know what she was injected with. I had to phone a day or two later to actually find out what the drugs were, because when I looked down when she told me that they had given her end-of-life drugs, they were holding a tray, and there was 3 injections on that tray. Now obviously one of the injections would have been the morphine. My mum got morphine constantly, for pain, but the other 2 injections, what on earth were these? She's telling me the names of these over the phone. I looked up one of the drugs that was given to my mum, and it says that it was something like 5 hours, 3 to 5 hours that this actually starts taking effect. So she's let me walk out of there, and when I asked her how long my mum had, she told me she could be here in a couple of days, she could be here in a couple of weeks. Everybody's different. Not a couple of hours. Excuse the French. But that's my story. When I spoke out about it 2 weeks ago in Falkirk, it was the first time I've actually spoke out about it. I'm looking for someone to take me forward legally with this. Yes, my buddy. And I want the doctor, I want the nurse, and I want that carer that was all responsible for my mum's murder, end off. And it's and anybody in my position that has got a story, I urge you to come forward with the story and tell the stories, the real truth, not what's getting covered up in these care homes, not what's getting covered up in these hospitals. Absolutely shocking. It's how I don't understand how anybody can order anybody's death over the phone without even being seen. And I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to my rant. hat.